Okay, and we are live. Welcome to Wednesdays with RV Life. RV Life product training, Q&A. If you have questions, things you want to see us demonstrated, anything to do with RV Life Pro, RV Life Trip Wizard, the RV Life app, put those questions in your comments either on YouTube or Facebook. Speaking of YouTube or Facebook, if you are be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe or like the Facebook page. Also hit that thumbs up on YouTube if you get a chance. It'll let YouTube know that you want to see these types of videos. You'll also be alerted when we have new product training videos, things like that, live streams, etc. We are finishing up August here and finishing up the season for the broadcast. We've got a few more. We're going to run through the end of August. And then we'll put that on the shelf for the season, the winter season, and pick it up again sometime in the spring. So today we're going to see if I can say it right. We're going to cover a couple of things specifically. We're going to talk a little bit again about membership and preferred campgrounds. We're going to touch on the menu choices under the avatar, where your name is there in Trip Wizard. And we'll talk a little bit about exporting trips. But I do have a couple of tech issues to go over first. So I'm going to, actually I can leave it here and there's the train, lovely. While we're waiting for the train to pass, you may notice I don't have my San Quentin fake brick background today. I'm in another part of our facility while another part gets painted and finished up. So hence the under construction background we have going on over here. It's lots exciting, a lot of things going on here. So excited about that. This part is a little more susceptible to the train, as we've talked about in the past. We've been pretty lucky to not have too much train interference. Okay, couple of quick support issues I want to go over. And in the time that the support team brought this to my attention, it may have already been fixed. It actually wasn't on our end. So there's a company, many of you may have software by a company called Avast, and it's going to be malware, antivirus type software. And they have sort of a sister company called AVG. And those were reporting our website as a false positive. And so you weren't able to get there. It would say something like, hey, this is a potential malware site, whatever. Obviously, that's not true, and no other sorry, I just got a comment to turn on closed captioning. Mark, I think that's on the YouTube side, not on my side. If it's on my side, I don't know where it is. I have no idea. On YouTube, I think there is a closed captioning place you can turn that on. I'll double check here. I've not ever seen that on my end. That's something I can research to see if StreamYard has closed captioning. That's a good question, but I don't have that today. So, and I don't see it in my menu options anywhere. I know on YouTube there is a place for that. Now, what I don't know is it quick enough to do it in live stream? So that'll be a learning point for us, Mark. And I'll make a note. In fact, I'll make a note right now and see if that's something we can look at later. Closed captioning. Question mark. I can reach out to StreamYard and see if they have any information on that. So back to Avast AVG reporting a false positive, telling you our website was dangerous, yada, yada. This was very sudden. It was something they pulled up on their end. I think they've already fixed it. If for some reason you're using Avast and AVG and you're still seeing that, do an update, and I think they've already resolved it. On the surface, this looks like two companies saying there's something wrong with our website. The reality is this is one company. They are out of Prague in the Czech Republic. They've been around a long time. and they are a trusted source. They are a trusted product, but obviously they pull from the same source. And so when one sees something, the other sees it. And obviously our site hasn't changed. We haven't suddenly become a malicious site or malware. This was just an error on AVG's site. And I believe that's already been fixed. Again, they are in Prague, Czech Republic. If for those of you that don't recall or don't know that, and the train is killing us right now. I had a little banner here to play when the train went by. See, I don't know if I have it anymore. And I've got a good question from Ben. Anyway, just to wrap up the thought on AVG, prior to 1993, the Czech Republic and Slovakia were combined as what us old folks know as Czechoslovakia, and so that split up. If you were to visit there, perhaps zip in, zip right out again, it would have been like going into Wisconsin. So there you go. Some of you get that later. Let's see what Ben's question is. Would like to be able to mark a campground as reserved or not, either by color change or check mark. Yes, Ben, we absolutely can show you that. I will do that in a half second when we jump out to TripWizard. I just want to have one last little comment here on web browsers. Remember, there's multiple web browsers on your computer: Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari, DuckDuckGo, Opera, Brave, Vivaldi. I've even heard of one called Dolphin. When you're having a problem, always try a different web browser, whether it's TripWizard, whether it's your bank, whether it's your kid's PTA site, it doesn't matter. The majority of internet users, 65%, use Chrome. The next 20% use Safari. So that's, there's 85% of your interneting public right there on those two browsers. So give those a try. Try Edge, try Firefox. Remember this: browsers like Chrome or Firefox are updated whenever they feel like it, right? They're always updated. Whereas your iOS or your operating system browsers like Edge or Safari are generally only updated when the OS updates or when the OS pushes an update, which is far less frequently than Chrome or Firefox. So whenever you're having an issue, try another browser, ideally one of the aftermarket browsers versus your built-in browser. Just a quick reminder on that. Okay, let's jump to our TripWizard page. And we're going to answer Ben's question real quick about how to, if I look at this list, in fact, with the trip I'm using right now, and I'm going to move this window a little bit. Give me a second. I want to be able to see the comments and whatnot. So as you look at my TripWizard trip right here, you can see that next to a couple of these, I have a calendar icon, essentially. This is a reservation marker. Ben, this is what you're looking for. And the way that I get that is under any of these stops. If I put anything in this reservation info field, I will get this calendar icon. So let's go in here, remove that, and save it. And you see my little reminder, my little reservation marker, which is essentially a calendar with a check mark in it, is gone. And I can put anything I want in here. It makes no difference whether I put a real reservation number or not. It shows if I have anything in that field, that shows me I have a reservation. So when I glance at this trip, I can see I only have, 3 or 4 places here, actually 2 left, 3. 1, 2, and 3 that I need to make a reservation on. So Ben, I hope that helps you a lot. It's really simple, and you can put whatever you want in there. Confirmation number, reservation number, random text, X's, doesn't matter. Tim J, hi, what's going on? Okay, so let's dig into what we were going to talk about. One last quick browsery issue I want to remind people of is a lot of times we increase the size of our browser font and whatnot. Make it easier to see. You know, a lot of us know. Oh, great. We've got a message from Donna about, I'll paste this here toward the end about how to, you know what, actually, I'll just paste it now. Give me a second. About using caption. This might be for me. Captions on live stream. I'll look at this later. Yeah, this might be for me to do. So thanks, Donna, for that. And we'll see about getting captions on our stream. We've not ever done it before, but I like the idea. So terrific. Okay, one last note on browsers. Remember, whether if you're a Windows user, it's Control, and if you're a Mac user, it's Command. But either way, we're going to hit plus or minus to increase or decrease our scope on the browser. So looking at this trip right now, this window looks very much like we expect it to. Trips on the left, elevation on the bottom, research on the right. But if you've increased your browser size, maybe your glasses aren't doing their job or whatever, and we've gone this number, there's 110, boom. At 125, suddenly my window looks different. Now I have trips at the bottom, trip, map, research, account. You know, my window looks noticeably different. And this is simply through, this isn't a setting we have done. This is simply your browser changing the scope. And then, of course, it pushes things around. And so this is 125% browser magnification. And so I would want to just back that back down. Now, there's nothing wrong with this view. This is actually what it looks like on an iPad or a tablet. So if you like this, if you can live with this and you like the larger font and whatnot, great. That's why it's there, right? That's why there's options. And if I was to want to bring that back down to normal, I can do it this way. That's 90, there's 100%. So just a quick reminder again on that. Here again, if we were to try a different browser where we had not set that magnification, it might have exposed that concern. So it comes back to trying a different browser. You know, always try, when something isn't right, try another browser first, right? Okay, I think enough about browsers and tech stuff. Let's go to our first topic, which is the membership and preferred campgrounds. So this came up this week during support. And the issue was, and we've talked a lot about filtering here. We've got a whole we did a whole day on filtering, and there's a video out there on filtering. But the concern was, and let me turn on these campgrounds, that as folks would zoom in, let's zoom into this Denver area here. There they are. They weren't seeing their campgrounds, and they said, look, I have 0 filters, and you can look at my screen. There's 0 right up here at the top, and we can see that under filters I have none selected down here. But the problem was folks were zooming in and they weren't getting any campgrounds, or they were getting one type or a very small amount of campgrounds. And when it's not filtering, which is very often the case, the other thing it could be, and I had a better word that didn't come to mind there, but the other thing it can be here is the other gremlin I think I was looking for, right, is the memberships and preferred campgrounds. So let's look at that right now. If I go to the wrench and I go to memberships and clubs, we can see these are all selected. Now, if I was to click on them, it takes away like a red border around each of these oval buttons here, right? And we can see I'm not selecting any of them as preferred. And you can see down here I have. So the idea is that if I want to show only preferred campgrounds, I'm going to select the ones I want. Now, this feature has kind of 2 pieces to it. So we're going to go through it, and then we'll go back and talk about it just a little bit more. Right now, I have all of mine selected. And we'll talk about that. Let's go to the next. Here is the order I might want them in. The reason this is important is because if I have a campground that is, I'll make sure I can see my comments here. All right, we'll talk about that. If I have a campground that is multi-affiliated, for example, maybe it's a Yogi Bear campground and maybe it's a Good Sam campground as well. And if I'm specifically looking for Good Sam visually, and if we go back to my map real quick, let me drop over to that. You can see right here, there's that Good Sam icon, right? And so if I'm looking for those and I don't see that, here's a Yogi Bear right down here under Larkspur. Well, if I have a campground that is affiliated with both entities, which is really common, right? You get your FMCA discount, your Good Sam discount, you have a Yogi Bear campground, whatever. If I want to see that Good Sam first, then I need to come down here to my list, find that Good Sam icon. Right here, it's at the bottom. I want to drag it up to the top so that a campground that is multi-affiliated will show me the Good Sam picture. The little icon will be Good Sam, or prefer, let's say, just hate Good Sam, right? I want KOA or I want Yogi Bear. If I'm a multi-affiliated campground that is a Yogi Bear campground that also has an FMCA discount, that also has a Good Sam rating, etc., it's affiliated with all three of those entities, but whichever one I have on top is the picture it's going to show me. So if I'm looking for Yogi Bear campgrounds, that's the picture I'm going to see. That's really all this represents. All right, but let's go one more screen. So this is the important one I want to get to right now. Even though I've selected all of these campgrounds as my memberships and clubs, notice that I just choose show them all. Okay, so if I'm just going to choose show them all, why do I care about clicking them? My reason for that is so it shows me all of those colorful little icons that represent the parks. If I have none of those selected, I'm just kind of going to get the plain old vanilla green tents. Okay, now let's look at that scenario again. However, we're going to clear these so that I only have certain ones selected. We're just going to leave Thousand Trails selected. And I'm going to remove all the rest. A little bit of a pain. And again, this is not something you'll hardly ever do. And the reason is you don't need to. And that's when folks forget about it and they don't understand why they're not seeing everything. So here I've got Thousand Trails selected. And I've got it up here. That's the common one. I'm going to save that. Now I only have the one preferred campground, Thousand Trails. Now I'm going to hit next. And I'm going to say, go ahead and show me only those. All right. And now I'm going to save. And guess what? Give it a little time to refresh. I'm not seeing any campgrounds. And I'm going to have to find, where is there 1,000 trails? Now, I happen to know there's some here near the DFW area. I mean, there's hundreds, obviously. You have to think of where the ones are. And here we go. I know this one out here by Bridgeport. And here's this one out by Quinlan. So it's doing exactly as I told it to do. It's showing me only 1,000 trails. Yet I have no filters. So this kind of, people forget that they've made that change deep in that menu and can't understand why they're only seeing that. Now, if I go back to that menu real quick, and I go ahead and I tell it show all campgrounds. Okay. Now we see all of those campgrounds again, just like we said. But what did I say earlier? I said, if I select all those, I get the nice colorful campground icons that make it easier for me to identify them. As you can see here, guess which two only bear a colorful icon? The 1,000 trails, because they're the only one on my list, even though I'm choosing to show all campgrounds. So the recommendation is, if you are dyed-in-the-wool, only going to stay at a certain type of campground no matter what, this feature is fine. for you. If not, leave it to show all campgrounds and instead use the brands and clubs and membership section down here and just nitpick the ones you need through filtering. And that way, here's the 1,000 trails. I can clear my filters and I get all my campgrounds back. And then, of course, if I want all the pretty icons again, I'm going to go back in and reselect all those and save it. So that's that. Think about if you have any questions on that. I'm going to pop in here and answer some questions. So if you're not seeing the elevation at the bottom of the screen, it's likely that browser issue where, here, I'm not going to see elevation. If I go into this mode, I believe, let's see. I'm not even sure I can find elevation without that. Yeah, I can turn it on and off down here. So it makes it a little bit different. Again, this view is more of a tablet view. So if you're using this type of a view, either on a tablet or you've got your magnification set really high on your web browser, it won't show the elevation down here. You'll have to go into map settings and you'll have to come down here and turn on elevation and you'll see it across the top. It functions perfectly well. It's just a different presentation. So hopefully that will answer that question. We'll set things back to normal. The other reason you might not see it is if you're using a funky browser or a old outdated browser of some kind. So that's something we would want to look at. This is a good question from Kathy. And this is really only if the campground, let's see if we're providing that at all. This is an interesting filter. Let's see if we've got this under amenities. Recreation. Yeah, here we go. So Kathy, under your filters, specifically under the recreation category, expand that and you'll see pickleball right there. All right. I hope that helps. Let's move on. Jim's got a question about the Android app. When routing to my destination, the top is always north. So when I'm going east-west, there's almost no map shown. Google Maps has a setting for keep. Jim, there should be a setting for this. It's during navigation. If you swipe up, you should get an option to change that. Let me just test that real quick. Let's look at it. This is an Apple, but let's share this screen and see if we can prove that, right? Let's stop sharing that one. Let's turn off that question for a second. And we're going to try to share the phone again. Un momento. I think this will do it. Okay, now let's share that. Okay, so what we're going to do is, let me get out of that. We're going to go to our trips. Of course, it's going to update them right away. We're going to, I think I can take, I'll just grab this trip because I think it leaves from my house. Yeah. I'm going to start navigation. It should do okay here in this building. I'm going to start. Now, once I've started navigation, now I get some options. And here's my north up. I can turn that on or off. But you only see that when you start navigation. So hopefully that is helpful, Jim. Awesome. And Jim says he sees that. Very good. Okay, so that's cool. We'll leave that plugged in case we need it. Let's jump back to Trip Wizard and see what else we were going to cover. Keep those questions coming. They're great ones. Good job, folks. Okay. We covered the memberships and clubs, and I'm going to go in real quick while you're all watching and just turn these babies back on because I like to see the little designated icons. It's a little easier on the eyes. It is probably a little bit more of a bandwidth hit, even though there's small images. There's plenty of them. So if you're on sketchy internet or a slow laptop, you might not want to turn these on. I think they're small enough. It's no big deal, though. And we're just going to save. I don't care about the order. And I'm going to show all campgrounds. And we'll get our nice selection again. I guess I'll kill my filters. And there they are. Okay, next topic is, we talked about that. Some quick, we haven't really covered this in past broadcasts. So let's look at the options under, this is kind of your little avatar, right? And of course your name is there when you click on it. We'll just cover these settings real briefly. So default settings, we've talked about this before in our settings videos, but these default settings are the settings that every new trip derives from. You know, when you start a new trip, if you ever thought about it, even though that menu comes up, everything's filled in already, right? You haven't had to choose your RV's height every single time and your driving radius. You haven't had to do all that for every new trip. Why? Because it derives those settings from here, right? It pulls them from your default settings. So it's imperative that you make sure these are correct for your RV, at least in a general sense. When you're doing individual trips, if you have individual needs for those trips, that's great. That's why we offer that. You know, maybe you have a trip where you're not pulling a tote, or we've talked before about taking a luxury trip through Florida RV resorts versus a trip through Corps of Engineers parks. You're going to want to change your budget numbers, things like that. But anyway, so we just want to make sure your default settings are correct, and this is where you find them. The second option here is edit account. This is a place where you're going to potentially change your name or email address. Be careful with changing your email address just randomly here, because you have to bear in mind that your email address is tied to all of your RV Life properties and access, which means your RV Life app, your IRV2 login, your Forest River Forums login, or Fiberglass RV, or whatever you're into with all of our different forums and websites, your campground reviews login. You start monkeying with this stuff, it's going to affect all of that, so bear that in mind. And it's not something you do right before a trip, right? When you need your resources. If this is something needs to be done, do it. And if you have any issues, our support team can help you. Communication is just simply receiving emails, all or none. This really pertains to just the Trip Wizard emails for the most part. And if you want to change your password, that's great. As it states here, this affects all of your other RV Life properties. But this is a nice, easy way to change that password versus going to another site and waiting for a link to come back and all that type of thing. Next on that list is our help menu, which we've referred to a few times. Obviously, documentation here is what it is. It's built right in. You can see it's always kept up to date and it's well organized. It's a nice set of docs. We've got community support, which basically jumps you to IRV2, and it specifically takes you to the RV Trip Wizard, the trip planning forum on IRV2. And there's tens of thousands of posts and hundreds of thousands of posts and members and things. This thing is active. There's thousands of people on every minute of the day. If you need, especially if you're digging around after hours and have some questions or just want a broader perspective or opinions on travel or any of those types of things, this site is obviously the go-to for that. And down here, we've talked about this video support button before. This takes you to the RV Trip Wizard YouTube channel. You'll see this first row are all the updated product training videos. We mirror these product training videos from the RV Life YouTube channel you're on now and we show them here in TripWizard along with some older videos by some great partners. Obviously, Stacy at You, Me in the RV, and Will and Jen from Matt's RV. We've got Mike the RV blogger. We've got loads of videos here from their perspective. Kyle and Renee, all kinds of stuff here. If you want to watch videos, you want more perspective on things, these are great videos to watch. But these training videos on the top are very precise, short, canned, specific videos to help with specific topics. They're professionally done and they're exceptional. I point those videos out because this video tab here is not particularly useful, so I wouldn't go there. Finally is the missing park tab here. This is twofold. Number one, it's for you to report an RV park that you can't find in TripWizard. You'll find most of them are there, and folks have filtered them out somehow. But in case you do actually run across maybe a brand new one, or maybe one, sometimes they'll change names or change ownership, and they'll change the name, and it's nothing like the old one, and we'll end up finding that park here. But it's also a great way to report, especially with all the new RV parks coming. Great way to report a new RV park or something that our rest of our team needs to know about. And not only our support team, but other RVers too. So that is the help menu. The feature tour, if you click on that, this is essentially a walkthrough introduction about everything RV TripWizard can do. You just follow it along. It's kind of a handholds you through a variety of steps. So if you're really new to TripWizard and you want additional hands-on, this is a great thing to do here. Let me end this. The what's new is just what it sounds like, is what's the latest updates. We see May 8th was the latest official update that we've done here. Any new updates, this will pop up automatically, but if you ever want to go back and look at them, you can go to the What's New menu. This RV Life Pro subscription will kind of tell you where you are in your subscription plan. It says here, I'm in the middle of a 2 years RV Life subscription reward plan that ends on July 6th. It's more than 2 years, obviously. And I work for the company, so hey. But this will show you where you are with your subscription, right? And just on that note, right, if you have a valid subscription here, which by getting into TripWizard you certainly should, remember that the RV Life GPS and Campgrounds mobile app, the app we just looked at a few moments ago, is included with that. Don't pay twice. Don't subscribe, to pay Apple for that. You already get it. Just sign out, sign into that app with your same TripWizard credentials. You'll have full access to that. It's all included in your subscription. And the last item on here obviously is log out, which we don't particularly wish to do right this moment. But if you're ever having funky problems and we say, well, look, log out, clear cookies, close your browser, reboot, that sort of thing, this is where you would do that. It's also a great way to test your credentials. So if you can't get into your mobile app and you're like, well, I'm sure I'm putting in the right credentials, log out and try to log back into TripWizard and see if you really are putting in the right credentials. Very often you're not, right? And this will help you vet that out a little bit. Here again, don't do that 5 minutes before you need to go out the door, right? If you're in, get your stuff and go. Okay, let's see if we got any other questions cooking over here. We are good. Make sure I got that. Okay. The last topic, official topic I have today is exporting trips. We'll go to that menu. We'll talk about it a little bit. If you have questions you'd like to have answered live today, I'd start thinking about posting those. But let's go look at exporting trips for just a moment. We've got a few options here. Before we do that, though, let's remind everyone to have your TripWizard trip that you've planned on your mobile phone to use for navigation and travel purposes. There's not a thing in the world you need to do other than download the mobile app and sign in. Okay. There's no fancy gymnastics, uploads, downloads, anything you have to do to get it done. It's right there. When you sign into that RV Life mobile app with your credentials, your trips will be there. And we can look at that again if anybody has anything specific they want to see. But on that mobile app, you tap trips and there they are. If they're not there, there's really just a couple of reasons. Number one, remember it only shows active trips. So if you've got all your trips stuck away in tentative because you haven't taken them yet, they're not going to show up. The ones you're working on that you want to see, move those as active trips. Number two, it could be you're not logged in correctly. Your phone tries to help you. It uses your face and fingerprints and all kinds of stuff to get in there, but that might not be the email address and password that are assigned to your account. So when in doubt, we've said it multiple times, log out of the mobile app, sign in with your TripWizard credentials, your trips will be there. And then number three is if it's just been a really long time since you've opened or closed the app, and maybe it's updated behind the scenes a couple of times and it just kind of is a little bit lost. When in doubt, log out of the app, log back in. If it's been a really long time, you might have to delete the app and reinstall. If there's been a bunch of updates, maybe you haven't used it in 6 months or whatever, maybe you need to do that. When in doubt, make sure you can log in on TripWizard on the computer or on a tablet or something like that. If that's working, your mobile app will work. And in all of those cases, your trips will be there. Now, so from a standpoint of exporting your trips to your phone, you don't need to do that. Where else and why else would I want to export? Now, I can export to a calendar. This is just to have those dates on my calendar. It just creates a standard ICS file that I can use for virtually any calendar system, and it'll just populate, no different than your rental car, your airline reservations, or any of those things do when you get an invite. Boom, right? It's on your calendar. I can export to Excel. Excel is a great place for number crunching, and a lot of us with IT backgrounds or financial backgrounds, looking at a spreadsheet is easy and comforting. And if you want to do that, export this thing to a spreadsheet, you're good to go. Number three, GPS export. Now, we're going to click on that. Of course, it's going to give us two options here, download a GPX and download a CSV file. The CSV we'll speak of real easily because it was used by Rand McNally quite a bit. And it was really simple process. It was kind of lengthy with the multiple steps, but it worked fine. You could upload that CSV file into the Rand McNally, and it worked fine. Rand McNally's kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. We don't see a lot of Rand McNally activity anymore. The majority of the RV space is standalone space, is dominated by Garmin. And in that case, that's what your GPX file is for. I can download that GPX file. I then have to push that into Garmin Basecamp on your computer. Then from there, you have to push it into your GPS. It's a little bit of a lengthy step. It may or may not be easy for you. My head unit, my Garmin head unit, and my coach it's in the head. I can't take it out. I'd have to push an SD card in there. It is not worth the hassle, particularly when I can just pull the trip up on my phone, right? I can also, if I really was intent on using the Garmin in my dash, I could plug addresses and things in there manually. Sometimes I will do that. If I have a multi-stop day, I'll put my final destination, the campground, in my head unit, but I'll use my TripWizard, my RV Life GPS app, and just track all those stops and things I have along the way. It's much easier and it's a great way to do it. But if you were intent on, if you have a Garmin and you want to go down that road, then download the GPX file and do your thing with Basecamp. The other, for a while, folks would want to dump into Google Maps. And that's fine, but the problem is, even though Google shows you from point A to point B is correct, Google's still going to choose its own path to get from point A to point B. And so you're no longer guaranteed the safety of that RV safe GPS route that TripWizard has planned for you. So unless you can afford to do that, if you've just got a Jeep pulling a pop-up or something, we don't recommend doing that. And there's virtually no reason to anymore. With the RV Life GPS app is going to show you and follow that route exactly. There's no sense in dumping it to Google or anything like that. So those are your export options. Particularly now with any of you that have trucks, most of the RVs, the motorhomes still don't have it, but they're getting there. But certainly a lot of your trucks, your Ford and Chevy and Rams and all that, now have Apple CarPlay in the dash. So it's almost a no-brainer to just pull your trip up on your phone in the RV Life app, get your trip started, plug it into the cable, and boom, it's on your truck's dashboard as an Apple CarPlay trip, and just go, right? Just follow it. There's no reason to complicate things. But these are the export options, and these are why they're there. We still want to provide as much flexibility as possible and give you as many options as you can. All right, let's take a look at some questions now. Oops. David's loving the mobile app, as am I. Thank you, David. Good to hear that. Sandy, good to see you back today. With no change to the Chrome browser settings, my RV TripWizard trip has gone into tablet mode. I cannot get it changed back. The team has been trying. I've actually seen this question bounce around a little bit, Sandy, sorry. One of the thoughts I had on this is if you were here earlier, we looked at the command or the control plus minus, right? The other thing is Windows itself, like if you have a Windows tablet laptop, Windows itself actually has a tablet mode that operates outside of TripWizard, outside of the browser itself. It's not a browser function. It is a Windows function. So there's some question as to whether that might be part of the issue. The one other reason you could help bear this out, and I don't know if it's been suggested, Sandy, but does this happen on a completely different browser? And are other programs on your computer feeling like tablet mode, like Word or Excel or something like that? So I think there's a lot to uncover there. I'm really interested in the tablet aspect of that Windows functionality versus anything specifically to do with TripWizard. Yeah, I mean, tablet mode is not fun. So the street view, Sandy, just so you know, the street view you can actually do on like an iPad or like a tablet, or in your case, in tablet mode by, if it's mouse driven, you can right click and right on the spot you want, and you can still get street view. In fact, we can demo that right now. We've done, in the past, when we've demonstrated street view, we've always dragged this little street icon, but I can do the very same thing by zooming in where I want to be. We'll see what this little campground here looks like. And I can just right click right there and choose Google Street View. And so on a tablet mode, you can do the same thing. It's very often holding down for a millisecond or two to get that menu to pop up if you're using your fingers. But there's that campground there. So hopefully that will help a little bit. I think we'll learn more about this tablet issue you're having. But yeah, you can get Street View in tablet mode. I'll be interested to hear how that comes out, Sandy, especially the Windows thing and the additional browsers thing. Okay, Mark's got a good question here, and we're going to jump to the mobile app again for this one. And the question is, do we recommend using it online, or is it better to use it offline with downloaded maps? It's a great question. And to me, it just kind of depends on where you're going. I think most of the time, I would download the maps ahead of time before you get behind the wheel, download them and have them on your phone. And that way, as you're going along, if something does get a little sketchy and your map is required and the internet isn't providing it, they're loaded for you. Now, I've taken plenty of trips that are, an hour or 2 hours away from DFW. There's no chance I'm losing cell signal. And sometimes I get lazy and I haven't downloaded the maps. But any trip of any stature that I'm going to take, I'm going to just go ahead and download them if I want to. And let's look at that real quick. Let me just back out of here. So when I choose a new trip, let's just pick this Hip Camp road trip here. I'm going to get that option to download those maps, and you can see I would need to download California because I don't have California on my phone. Now, once I download that, the red button isn't going to go away. What's going to happen is I'm going to tap on it, and it's going to show I already have it downloaded. We've got a flag coming that'll show you that it's already been done, so you don't fiddle with it. But I'm going to do that while I'm on Wi-Fi at home, the night before, in the campground, somewhere where I've got good internet. It doesn't have to be great, but you don't want to do it when you're driving, right? You want that assurance that it's good to go. So I would download the maps in almost all cases. Again, other than just being lazy, if I'm here in the area, I know I'm not going to lose cell signal. But why not download it? The phone is going to seamlessly grab that data if it needs it. It's nothing you need to do special. You just start your trip. If data gets a little sketchy, it automatically knows how to grab it from your device. So nothing to worry about there. All right, let's see what else we've got. Yeah, this is a great question. I'm getting sidetracked by Sandy's reply. I just want to look at her reply real quick again. No other programs on computer in tablet mode, and it does work correctly on another Edge browser, so it's Chrome. Yeah. So Chrome is doing something funky for Sandy, and we're gonna keep working on that and figure it out. So Sandy, appreciate you bringing that here, and I'm actually gonna make a note myself, and we'll continue to see what's going on there. And it just sounds like a funky Chrome bug on your end, but let's see if we can solve it, right? Tablet issue. Okay. Sue's got a great question, and we're going to jump to that right now. We've looked at the trips on the phone. Let's go back into Trip Wizard. And I've got a good trip up for this demonstration as well. So Sue's question is, can you show me where to go when we gas up and mark it in RV Life so it recalculates our next fuel distance? Absolutely. So this trip I've got here, I'm going to turn off campgrounds for a moment. You can see that I've got fuel warnings. You can see basically I've got a whole trip planned and I have not added fuel yet. Okay. So let's start the beginning of our trip, and we can see that we're leaving Daytona Beach, headed up north, and here's our first fuel warning right around White Springs or whatever this is here. Now, before we do that, let's look at our next fuel warning just to see if it's going to move on us at all. We can see our next fuel warning is right here, just east of St. Louis. So the first thing I need to do, of course, is find a fuel stop. Let's turn on our points of interest, and we'll grab some fuel. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let's say I know I've got enough reserve that I'm okay with driving what looks to be here about 12, 15 additional miles. I'm going to choose this pilot right here because you can see I've got fuel station selected. I'm going to choose this pilot. I'm going to add it to my trip. Now, this is the first stop after leaving Daytona Beach, right? I haven't stayed at any campgrounds yet. Let's make sure of that. Pilot, Daytona Beach. Yeah. We're going to turn these off just for clarity of view. So now I've got this thing added, but look, my fuel warning is still there. Well, it's because I haven't done anything yet. So Sue, this is the part you want. You want to come into your fuel stop, go to your little pencil icon, and you're going to top off your fuel. It's a given that when you go to a fuel stop, you're going to top off, right? I mean, that's it. So we're going to save that. You see the fuel warning is now gone. And my next fuel warning, you see, we said was east, a little east of St. Louis, but look, it's moved way down here. It's recalculated, and this is to be expected, right? It's recalculated based on my settings, and it has now moved this to a more accurate fuel warning where I would essentially do the same exact thing. I can look at a couple of things. See what our settings are. In this case, our settings are 100 gallons, 30 in reserve, 8 miles to the gallon. Now, we looked at this last week, but this goes under the assumption, you can see here that I actually realized, hey, we've only got half a tank when we leave Daytona Beach. So I overrode my 100 gallons to put 50 gallons. This is going to be pretty common. And that's why my fuel stop was pretty close to Daytona Beach, but my next one is really far away. And, you know, we could look at that. Let's take that setting out, or that fuel stop out. Of course, it recalculates, but let's say, no, you know what? I topped off the fuel before we parked, and we didn't burn any. So I've actually, I don't know why I'm going there. So I've actually got 100 gallons, you know, or let's say we ran the diesel heater for a couple of weeks while we were parked, whatever. I've got 95 gallons. I will save it. First thing you'll see is my first fuel stop has moved, which is to be expected, right? Let's turn on our gas stations again. Come in here and find a fuel stop. And we got loads of pilots right around where that's needed. So we'll do the same thing. We'll grab one, add it to our trip. It might be there still. Let's just turn those off and get a quick look at our trip again. See, this one is actually after the I-75 park, right? I drove a lot farther. So I've put it in the wrong spot. So let's just grab the little braille here and pull down on it. There you go. Now it's in the right order. And now we're going to go back to the pencil icon. We're going to top off the fuel. And it's going to eliminate that fuel warning and recalculate the next one, which you can see now is actually west of St. Louis. So that's the whole process. You just go through that until you've met all those objectives, until you've filled your tanks. Okay, let's take a look at what else we've got here. So this is a pretty good comment. So this is a good comment. This is a woulda, coulda, shoulda type of thing, is to after the videos are done, to write a more in-depth summary of what each video was about, so that later on we could go search for those. Yeah, that probably needs to happen next go around. I don't think it'll happen this season, but next time, yeah, we probably even go so far as to put markers and talk about when we've talked about each topic. That's just good video sense. And this is kind of the first season of really going along with this and doing it formally. And those are just some video details we probably need to attend to. So good suggestion, Sue. And thanks for pointing out my weakness there. All right, let's see what Jim has to say. Quick verification about gradients. It highlights them, but only makes the downhill gradients red, not uphill. I don't know about that. Let's take a look. So let's look at the gradient of this trip. That's a potentially interesting observation, Jim. That might bear a little bit of additional looking into. I can see a little bit of what you're saying with regard to this. I will leave that, but this is the direction I'm traveling, so that part is accurate. I would say that probably bears a little bit of looking in, Jim. So that's a pretty astute observation on your part, and I am making that note right now. Obviously, the color is relevant to the grade on this trip. I'm really not doing much anything over this, 2% or so. If we were to pull up another trip, we would see some other colors, but potentially interesting observation, Jim. So we'll dig into that a little bit more, okay? Let's see what Roy's got. I'd love to see a toggle switch type function in Trip Wizard, so quickly flip the map style between street map and satellite. Yeah, I hear you. Roy, on that. Right now, it's a couple of clicks. It's map settings. Where'd I go? Completely lost it. It's interesting. The issue with toggles on this thing is there's a limited amount of real estate to be able to put buttons and things like that. But I do hear you that would be a nice handy feature. So we'll bring that to the team and see if that's doable. Because I use that a lot as well. I go back and forth quite a bit. All right, Roy, that is noted. Again, a nice observation. Appreciate the questions and the observations, guys. Yeah, David follows up with timestamps for topics. I agree with that. That's been just a bandwidth problem this year of just time and energy and things. Let's take a look. So Sandy's question is pretty good here. When you choose another gas station, can you do the top off fuel from the phone app? Not yet. I mean, right now the app is really just following the trip you've already planned. You're not making any changes to your trip. You're not tweaking your trip at all. It's all done ahead of time. Now, could you log into the web browser on your phone and log into Trip Wizard and alter that? Yes. Inside the app where you're navigating, where you're following your trip, not at this time. We'll leave it at that. Okay, maybe some things down the road, but right now, no, Sandy, not in that sense that you're thinking. Donna's helping me out here. I just drew a blank. I actually don't. I just didn't scroll enough. Thank you. Map style. And for those of you that have been here a few times, you've seen me go to this menu 100 times, and I kind of just stared at it in a stupor there. Didn't have it. So thanks. Thanks, Donna. Yeah, Sandy, have a great trip out there. I've been there a bunch of times myself, and you are definitely doing a good job with this. We appreciate you very much. Let's see, we've got a question here. Also adjusted a toggle type feature on POIs. You may or not visit the area. Yeah, this comes up a little bit here. So we have a toggle in a sense of I can turn POIs on and off here with a single toggle. If I have a bunch turned on, let's just do that. Right now I've got all these fuel stops turned on, right? And so if I search for POIs, I get them all on here. And now it's like, okay, now I want to do something else and I don't want these in my way. I can just toggle them off all at once like that. Some of the toggling I can individualize here inside as well. If I click fuel, it grabs multiple selections. Well, for me, that's useless because I'm only going to one place. I'm only going to Pilot and Flying J, so I only choose those two. Now, where this might change, however, if I get, west out on the 180 or something out in Colorado, or coming down towards Monument Valley or something like that, and I need fuel, there's not a Pilot Flying J parked out there anywhere, right? So I might come back here and turn on all fuel stops again, because now I'm more willing to stop somewhere different to make sure I can get fuel. And then when I get to those spots, as we've talked about before, I'm going to go to satellite view and street view and just make sure I can get into that. So just looking at Jana's question a little bit more. Be helpful to turn those individually on. So I think on the heels of this question, kind of we can kind of drop that in on the stuff that might be coming, right? And that is the ability perhaps to assign some interesting, some points of interest or some activities related to this, say, this Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga. Right now, the best I can do is come down here and throw some comments in there. But wouldn't it be neat if I could add some of the POIs we find on the map, amusement parks, museums, whatever, and somehow get those into this menu on the left for future digestion? And those are ideas that are churning with our team right now. So hopefully we'll see something interesting come out of that. So I like that comment. Thank you. David, no, we are not. I don't have anybody on the team making that rally. We are all prepping for Hershey here, the Hershey RV show in September. And right now, all of our focus is on that. I may have some YouTube or content creator partners out there that might be repping us a little bit, but nothing formal right now for that rally. Yeah, and this is a great, another comment here. This is also an in the works type of a thing. We actually have this sort of done in other parts, like Campground Reviews has favorites and things like that. But the idea of a favorites or a to-do or things I might want to see is something that's been asked about a lot, and is something our team is looking hard at. Yeah, that's exactly right. I like Sandy's comment about the Flying J's and the lower tier of Kansas, and I've made those runs out there, and it's like, I use the satellite view, I use the street view, I vet those locations out, because if it's not a Pilot or Flying J, I need to make sure we can get in there, and that's exactly right. Yeah, another layer. Good comments. All right, David's ready to rep us. So David, shoot me an email. My first name at rvlife.com, Patrick at rvlife.com. Hopefully the spam bots won't get that now and send me a bunch of junk. But David, send me an email. We'll see what we can do if you're going to be there. I don't know if I got anything, and all of our resources are kind of allocated to Hershey, but you never know. Okay. From my perspective, I've talked about everything I'm going to talk about. You guys had some great questions and things that need to be dug into a little bit, and I will do that, get that in front of the team. We've got a couple of more weeks of this. We'll put out a last call for questions now, so that's a little bit of a delay, but that usually takes a minute. Last chance. Sandy, keep in touch. I want to know how things go with this. I just gave you my email address, so you know how to reach me, right? No more questions. We'll give it another minute, and we'll see. I don't know what we'll talk about next week. I usually don't get inspired till Sunday or Monday or so before I know what I'm going to talk about. I usually get with the support team and see what kind of issues are popping up. Remember to like and subscribe and thumbs up and all of those things on the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. If you're going to be in Hershey, come say hi. Come say hi on Wednesday if you can. And we'd love to see you. And that's it. No more questions. So we're going to call it a wrap. We'll see you next week at the same time. Everybody have a good week. Let me find out where my end thing here is. Here we go. There we go. We'll stop sharing.